So today I'm here with Devadas, a musician, composer, and songwriter. We'll be talking today about kirtan, which is Hindu chanting. Welcome, Devadas. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit more about what your path has been. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, where I am today, I guess, is this practice of kirtan. I've been singing a lot with, I travel to different places and lead chanting in New York City, in the Northeast, West Coast, Southeast, kind of all over. And I kind of came to this through my teacher, through my guru, who I met close to 20 years ago,
That's a long
I guess.
time.
Before that, I had no idea what any of this was, really. It's, a totally other experience than my growing up experience, I guess.
So what was your growing up experience then?
I grew up in Maine. I grew up going to an Episcopalian church and not liking it very much. Not having really sort of any spiritual inclination at all, I don't think. I think like very typical kind of adolescence and everything. I met my teacher after I had moved to New York in my early 20s, and that's when I was introduced to this and to meditation and everything else. So
I'm not sure if we should go. Should we talk about, do you want to talk about Amma, or do you want to talk about how you led up to Amma? Talk about how you led up to Amma, then we'll talk about Amma.
Well, I had come to New York City to go to film school, and I was here studying film. I was also a musician, a songwriter, going out and playing at the songwriter spots in the city. And I met Amma through a friend. She, as she does now, she travels all over the world, and she did back then as well. Not nearly as many people came to see her back then, but yeah, I met her in 96 or 97. I had a friend who, he worked at a bookstore in Astor Place called Esoterica, and he started working there, and the owner of the shop, he was a crazy guy with all kinds of jewelry from the East and everything draped over his body. Big Jewish guy with a really loud voice. He was named Russell. He was kind of plugged in to everything that was going on in New York City, satsang-wise. So, any yogis that came, any Buddhist teachers, any Dharma teachers at all, my roommate would find out about through him. So my roommate started dragging me to this stuff.
Dragging
me. I mean, I wasn't really. I wasn't.
You weren't a willing victim?
Well, sort of. I mean, we used to go out and have a few beers and then go to and then sit with people. And I found it kind of interesting. I sat with some amazing Tibetan teachers. I had no idea what was going on or anything. I liked the experience of sitting with them. Some teachers from India as well, some swamis, and then I met Amma, I guess maybe after a year or so of going to these various teachers in the city, and meeting her was an entirely different experience. It was powerful in a different way than meeting other people had been, I guess, other teachers had been. It was sort of like a bomb going off in my head. And, it was an experience. It's not like that for everybody, but it was like that for me. So
I mean, when you say a bomb, do you mean like a rush of energy, or was it like a brilliant white light, or was it an emotional thing, or what?
It was kind of an emotional thing. It was kind of an energetic thing. It's really hard to put into words other than the feeling, the overwhelming feeling that I had was that I needed to kind of change my life after meeting her, and that it kind of I got the sense that there was something different than what I had been reaching for. I mean, I wasn't that old. I was like 22 or 23, and I had kind of, I think I was a little bit lost in life at that point, as a lot of young people are. But yeah, meeting her turned things a lot, and through her, yeah, I started this practice. Yeah.
So in meeting her, you sort of had a little bit of an epiphany, sort of like did
I
it
guess
change,
so.
or did it happen right? The change, did it happen right away, or was it?
I didn't really know what it was exactly, but you know, I started
You're just
reading.
like, wow, that was like an experience.
Yeah, and it was kind of like a hit and run. Also, you know, she shows up in New York City, and then she essentially goes back to India, and it's the same way today. She travels all over the U.S., and then she comes to town for a few days, and then she goes back to her ashram in South India, and I didn't know anything about her, so I had this experience. I didn't really know what to do with it. I didn't know that there were devotees in the city, so I knew from being at the programs for a couple of days that this practice of, I didn't even know what it was called, but I knew that there was singing going on, which is, you know, what kirtan is. At the programs, I started to search out chanting groups, and I found some places to chant. Not really knowing what any of this stuff was. I started, you know, reading books. I found a couple of her books. Not that she doesn't write books, but people kind of keep track of, you know, her discussions with people, and so I found those very helpful. So over the course of a year, I guess, you know, things changed a lot. I started meditating.
That's a very short period of time, though, a year.
Yeah, it's pretty short, I guess.
20 years later, you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. But yeah, that's kind of how I found my way to her. And then when she showed up the next time, I don't know, there's something about certain teachers, they inspire, they can inspire feelings of, or desires for like renunciation, I guess. So after seeing her the second time, I thought, well, this is kind of it. I want to go and live in India. And, but yeah.
Did you?
I visited quite a lot. Yeah.
You didn't want to make the move for good, though.
I thought about it. I actually talked to her about it when I was, you know, in my memory is so bad, but, you know, sometime in those first couple of years, I talked to her about maybe moving to the ashram, and she didn't think it was a good idea at the time. I had some student loan debts and things like that, so it never happened. And, you know, I wound up getting married and having a daughter and everything. So everything, it's interesting.
It changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've sort of mentioned Amma, but we haven't really talked about who she is. Who is Amma? And
well, she's becoming quite famous. She's a little South Indian lady. Her ashram is in Kerala, which is at the very southern tip of India. She's famous. Now she's become famous for a lot of her humanitarian activities, but she's mostly famous for hugging people. If you come to see her at any tour stop or at the ashram, she gives something that's called darshan. You know, darshan is not unique to her. Anytime you sit with a spiritual teacher, if you're just sitting with them, it's considered darshan. Or if you're in a temple and you're looking at a deity, it's considered darshan. But with Amma, her darshans are very different in that she actually embraces you, physically embraces you, and maybe whispers in your ear or pinches your cheek or something. So there's a very, you know, Amma, the name actually means mother, and she's very much like a mother. She's, I would also consider her to be my guru, but she's it's hard to think of her as a guru in the traditional sense because she's so maternal. Yeah.
So you've mentioned the term guru, and I'm kind of wondering what you mean by that. Like,
well, I mean, it's a word that's kind of thrown around a lot. There are a lot of different gurus. There's computer gurus, and there's there's tabla gurus, but there's music gurus. There's gurus for everything. But
so
when I say guru, she's a spiritual teacher. She's a spiritual teacher that I have a lot of faith in. It's not really so much about what she says, although, what she says is very consistent with, with any scriptural text you could ever look up. It's more about how she lives her life and how she is she's a perfect example of how to live a spiritual life, to me. So she's a teacher in that way, I think.
So when you say guru, you really mean like a teacher. That's kind of, you're sort of using that term as teacher?
I think that's probably the best way to put it. I mean, there are a lot of heavy connotations with that word, but
with
I think
teacher or guru?
With guru.
Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, I think that's the best way to think of it.
Because I guess when I think about guru, if someone says guru, I don't think teacher. I think like leader.
Yeah.
Like somebody who is pretty akin to God. But
well, she inspires a lot of people. If you come to her programs in New York City, for example, on any one of the programs, there might be 5,000 people lined up to have her darshan. And, she inspires people to do a lot of good stuff. And, people have, I had it myself. There was something about meeting her that changed me. And I think that happens with some people, not everyone, but it does happen with some people. So it's a little more, I guess, than just being, a teacher, but yeah, it is and it isn't, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a great framework for the term guru, because I come from a more Buddhist-y tradition,
Sure.
and so I don't know.
It's the same thing as like maybe you talk about like a root lama, maybe.
Me? No,
I don't know.
Maybe.
But there are
somebody
gurus. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I always think of like a guru as someone who is like not just like somebody who guides your life in a more hands-on kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting relationship. And with her, you can sort of be, and I imagine it would be the same with any real teacher, is that it can kind of be anything it can kind of be what you want it to be. If you want to just kind of sit back and, read her talks or just watch her do her thing, that's totally fine. But you can also have very deep personal relationships with her. I mean, I talk to her about the most practical things. She asks me about my finances. She asks me about my daughter. So, which kind of goes hand in hand with that maternal thing. It feels like I'm talking to my mother a lot of the time. But yeah, and guru is a weird word because it's got a word that's kind of, I think it's gotten a bad rap from...
Well, it sounds like she's going to tell you what to do and then you're going to do it. Is what I mean,
no,
from my
actually,
Western...
she doesn't tell anybody what to do ever. People go and ask her questions all the time. Usually it's sort of like, well, you can do what you want to. Most people...
That sounds like the perfect guru.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, but she doesn't really make up anyone's mind for them, as far as I've ever heard.
My mother used to say that to me. Do what you want. It's true.
But that's loaded, right?
It's loaded, but she didn't say the same thing to my sister. So figure that one out. So you found Amma. You said you had sort of gone like done some Buddhist meditation also? Or?
Not really. I mean, so I met a few teachers. I had met some Tibetan teachers who impressed me a lot, and I had met a couple of swamis who really resonated with me for whatever reason. So I was just kind of dipping my toes in the water, I guess. Yeah, and after I met her, I had started chanting a little bit, not really knowing what any of it was. There were a couple places that I liked to go to in New York City. There was a spot in the Chelsea Hotel, of all places, that I liked to go and sing at. Yeah, I was just kind of, I guess, experimenting, and I tried meditating a little bit also. Again, not really having any sort of technique that had been taught to me. I had read some books. I had read, there were a couple of books that were out detailing some of Amma's conversations with people, and there was little hints about meditation in there. And I had read some of Muktananda's books. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He was another Indian guru. And there's a couple of books that I really enjoyed, and so I started meditating a little bit in earnest. Yeah.
So currently, are you just doing kirtan, or do you also do meditation?
No, kirtan's just kind of one part of what we do. If you go to her programs, you'll notice that there's sort of devotional music happening all through the programs. It's a very important part of what we do. It's a very important sadhana, and she puts a lot of emphasis on it. Yeah, sadhana is just another word for spiritual practice. But there's meditation, there's karma yoga, there is
karma yoga being.
It's sort of, you could think of it as like selfless service. There's some of that. She's inspired a lot of charities that people give their time to.
Or whatever.
Yeah. There's scriptural study. It's really kind of balanced.
What scripture?
Everything from Upanishads to Bhagavad Gita to Brahma Sutras.
Which are all from the Hindu tradition, is that correct?
Yes,
okay.
yes. So there's a little bit of everything, which is very traditional. To my understanding, that's a very traditional way to run a railroad, I guess. But yeah, kirtan has always been the easiest one for me. I sit and meditate, or I sit and I try to meditate, and I'm thinking about everything other than meditation. I'm thinking about The Walking Dead. I'm thinking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm thinking about my laundry. I'm thinking about the guy who cut me off in the car. With kirtan, it's much more easy to get absorbed, I think, in it. Yeah, it's an interesting practice. It's basically the way we do kirtan. Essentially, we're repeating names, divine names, and you can do that without the music element to it. But when you're singing and when you're doing it in a group setting, it's just a little bit sweeter. So it's easy to kind of go deep into it.
You don't think that's true of like sitting practice, sitting meditation practice?
I think it can be. I think it can be for sure. And I've been meditating for a long time. It's just it's always been easier for me personally to kind of delve into kirtan, to bhajan.
Maybe because you're musical by nature.
It could be. It's interesting. My guru says, I mean, she wants us to meditate. She wants us to do karma yoga. She wants us to study. But she says that this practice of kirtan is actually the easiest in the age that we're living in. It's an age of distraction. In Hinduism, they call this age Kali Yuga, and it's an age of materialism. And yeah, I mean, it's so easy. If you think about something, you can just go to your phone and you call it up immediately.
Or watching TV with your Googling information, like, oh, what is that? I don't hear.
But yeah, I mean, our minds are constantly going outwards. And and somehow kirtan is an easy way to break free from that for a little while, I think. And for me, it's been a little bit easier than the other practices. They're all great, and the different ones obviously work for different people.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of meditation practice do you do?
It's just very simple, like following your breath kind of practice. Nothing too crazy.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you feel about, like, when you look back on your past and like the way things sort of unfolded? I mean, what do you make of the way this path kind of unfolded for you?
Well, it's interesting. You know, after meeting her the second time, I started to meet other devotees in the area, and you know, devotees, people were getting together and having satsangs and getting together.
Satsangs?
And yeah, satsangs are a typical satsang would be getting together to chant, basically. So we would go to hang out in people's living rooms and sing together, sing and meditate together. And that's kind of how I got involved with leading kirtan. It's interesting. It was never really my intention to be going out and traveling and doing this. It was just something to keep yourself grounded, almost. You know, New York is kind of a tough place to be in, and it's nice to have like-minded people. Oh, well, you can have anything that you want in New York. Mm-hmm. That's not so great for spiritual seekers sometimes.
Although with the spiritual thing, you can have any flavor of spiritual practice.
Actually, that's very true. And there are
Which I don't know if that's good either, you know?
Well, it's not bad, I don't think.
I don't know, you know? Because then you can, like, sort of do the spiritual shopping, right? You know, like, I can go and do this flavor of Buddhism, and then tomorrow I can do this other flavor. And then Friday I'll do kirtan, and then, you know, and then Saturday I'll do yoga, and then...
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. And actually, it's nice to take advantage of that. I sing with my guru's devotees, and I'll go and chant at the Krishna temple also, and I'll chant, with anyone. We all kind of cross over.
Yeah, you know, I'm curious about that. I mean, do you, is Amma solidly Hindu? I mean, like, how is that? Like, I always think of...
But you don't really have to be, I mean, there's no prerequisite, there's no conversion to Hinduism.
You don't get baptized?
No, and you know, her real mission, I think...
Ganges.
not to speak for her, I have no idea what she would say, but to me, it seems like her mission is whatever path you're following is to inspire. It's her intention to inspire you on that path. So so Buddhists come to her, Christians come to her. In India, it's beautiful. Mother Teresa's nuns will come, and they'll all have darshan. Buddhists will come have darshan. Yeah, everyone comes. It's not so important. It's just another thing to get hung up on, I think, in my view.
So would you identify as a Hindu?
Well, not really, I guess. I mean, yes and no. I mean, all the practices that I do are Hindu practices. They work for me, and they always have. I'm not really sure what it is. Like I said, I came from a very normal Western background, going to church on Sundays and everything. But somehow these worked for me.
Mm-hmm. They just sort
and
of
more
click.
effectively. And not even, working, I'm not an expert on any of this stuff by any means. I'm not a teacher by any means. I know a little bit more about what it is I'm chanting than when I started. I know a little bit more about things like the Gita and stuff than when I met my teacher, obviously. But essentially, I'm not like a scholar or anything like that. But for some reason, right from the get-go, these practices worked for me. I sort of feel like, in a way, they have their own mojo. There's a practice that we do every morning at our ashram. We chant the Lalita Sahasranam, which is a text that essentially you're reading the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother. And, you know, we go and we show up and we do this, and oftentimes we don't even know what a lot of the names are that we're chanting. They're all in Sanskrit. Somebody went to ask Amma about that, and he was a little conflicted about it because he didn't understand. And he was asking if he was really getting any benefit from, you know, chanting this without really understanding what it meant. And she said, well, you know, if you're taking a bus, all you have to do is get on the bus. You don't have to know how to drive the bus. You don't need to know how to fix the engine. That's all taken care of. All you need to do is get on the bus. And so, you know, taking up these practices is kind of like that. It's nice to know a little bit.
Analogy.
Yeah, it's nice to know a little bit, but you know, they have their own. These things have been chanted for so long, and you know, it's hard even if you know what some of this stuff is. You know, like if you look up, you know, we chant to Radha Krishna. Mm-hmm. You can go on Wikipedia and find out what Radha Krishna is. You can, you know, Google it. You can find pictures. You can read stories, but knowing what that really is it's different. I mean, the names that we sing, it's said that they're actually names of our own true self. So it's hard to. So even if you have a lot of intellectual knowledge about them, it's hard to. It's really stuff that's beyond the mind. So, mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, we're out of time for this segment.
Okay.
So did it go fast?
It went fast.
Okay. So thanks for coming, and we're gonna pick up